Hello and welcome to SA Decides Convenience Poll. Your vote counts. It's the largest pre-poll survey in the country based on the most exhaustive data and in-depth analysis. And after laying out the voter perceptions over the last 3 weeks, we get down to real numbers. And here is what is in store for you on the show today. Just over 3 weeks to go for the polls. Who would the people vote for if the municipal elections were held today? Is the ANC in trouble in Gauteng, or has it shored up its approval ratings before the elections? We tell you in a little bit. Will the local poll results have a bearing on the national elections 2 years down the line? Remember, SA Decides gives you a glimpse of the changing fortunes for the major political parties in the fray based on a much larger sample size than any other survey in the history of South Africa. Now, 8,700 respondents and counting. And here's a quick recap of what the takeaways are so far. It's over to my colleague, Abigail.
Well, thank you very much, Cindy. Now, on your vote counts, let's take a look at what some of the respondents have said so far. Improvements in the last 5 years. Let's take a look at some of those areas. Electricity supply, 53.1% says they have seen an improvement there. Taking a look at health services, 37.5%. Schools, 46%. Moving over now, let's take a look at what some of the respondents think, which are the areas, rather, that's remained the same in the last 5 years. Taking a look at living standards, 43.5% says that it has remained the same. Taking a look at public transport now, 40.7% there. Water supply, 38.6%. Taking a look at roads, 35.8%, and policing and crime, 38.5% of people think that it's remained the same there. Now, moving over, let's take a look at which party can deliver services according to our respondents. The ANC, 48.3% there, the ANC leading, the Democratic Alliance at 19.4%, and the EFF at 12.1%. Now, let's take a look at which party you think will win your municipality. The ANC at 55.3%, excuse me, there. The Democratic Alliance at 13.5%, the EFF at 11.1% there.
So far, it's just been about voter perception, but today we get down to the business end of things. And to discuss the numbers, we have on the show Busisiwe Kaba. She's a political analyst with Monash South Africa. Thembinkosi Josopo is an ANC National Working Committee member, and Samkelo Mkopozi is a press director for the Democratic Alliance. And now let's start with the parties that are least popular among the voters. We asked your respondents, or our respondents rather, which party they think they may never vote for, and it's over to Abigail for the results.
Yes, and we asked that question, which party would our viewers never vote for overall? Let's take a look at some of those responses. The ANC, 22% said that they would not vote for the DA. The Democratic Alliance was at 20.6%, the EFF at 26.5%, while the IFP at 5.9%. About 11.2% was unresponsive and could not say which party they would not vote for. But let's break that down now province-wise, the party you may never vote for. Starting off in the Eastern Cape, the ANC, 18.1% of people said they would not be voting for the ANC. EFF, 19.1%, and the Democratic Alliance is at 27.9%. Moving over to the Free State province, the ANC is at 24.5%, the EFF at 30.8%, and the Democratic Alliance at 20.3%. Moving swiftly along to the Gauteng province, now this is where things get a little bit interesting. The ANC, 28.4% of people in Gauteng province said they will not be voting for the ANC. Very close here, the EFF is at 27.9%, while the Democratic Alliance is at 15.6%. Let's move over to KwaZulu-Natal province and take a look there. 17% of people said they would not be voting for the ANC in that province. The EFF is at 31.2% and the Democratic Alliance at 18.4%. Moving swiftly along to the Limpopo province, 19% of the respondents said they would not be voting for the ANC. Meanwhile, the EFF is at 27.8% and the Democratic Alliance at 23.9%. Let's move over now to the Mpumalanga province. 25.9% of people said they would not be voting for the ANC in that province. Meanwhile, 29% said they would not be voting for the EFF, and the Democratic Alliance is at 21%. Moving over to the Northwest province, ANC is at 22.4%, EFF at 18.9%, and the Democratic Alliance at 22.7% in that province. Moving over to the Northern Cape now, ANC at 19.8%, EFF at 31% there in that province, and the Democratic Alliance at 21%. Moving over to the Western Cape, also very interesting here, the ANC is at 20.8%. That's how many people said they would not be voting for the ANC in the Western Cape. Very close here between the EFF and the Democratic Alliance at 22.2% each. Now let's take a look at the demographic breakdown. The question was the party you would never vote for. Now when it comes to age, except for the age group of 25 to 35 years old, the maximum number of voters in every other category are most dissatisfied with the economic freedom fighters. Also, once again, the question was asked the party you may never vote for. In terms of education, let's take a look. The lesser educated groups are not favouring the economic freedom fighters a lot at this moment, and least dissent is seen amongst the most educated for the Democratic Alliance. Continuing that with a question, once again, the party you may never vote for. When it comes to income-wise, the breakup there, let's take a look. The poor people are not too happy with the economic freedom fighters, while the ANC does not find favour with the middle income group at this stage. Also, the Democratic Alliance has the least number of unhappy voters in both the middle and high income groups there. Now, talking about race, the results are predictable. Some can say most black people are still in favour of the ANC and the EFF. Meanwhile, the coloured people still go for the Democratic Alliance as their party of choice.
All right, so let's just look at the trends here in terms of the respondents, the party you may never vote for in the age groups between 25 to 55 years. The ANC at 20.2%, DA 21.3%, and the EFF at 28.4%. Busi, let's start with you. What do you make of this trend?
This is very interesting because looking at this age group, it's the youth, you know, the ages between 25 to 35. And if you consider that some people, it may be their first actually taking part in an election, I suppose it's for the youth, what is important is which party resonates the most with them. You know, the new market, the niche market, the young ones. And it depends on which political party they may most be affiliated with or which one they feel that resonates with their needs in terms of education, unemployment, drug abuse, curbing drug abuse. So that's very interesting for me, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the ANC has been criticized of being very archaic. It's become too big a ship, and it moves very slowly, and that's why we see the likes of the DA and the EFF making inroads, particularly in the youth sector.
No, we don't agree with that, that the DA is making inroads in the youth sector. If you can try to feel and tend to understand where are these people of the DA that disclaims that they are making inroads compared with your ANC. Let's go to membership to start with. Go to participation of young people in the structures. Let's leave that one. Beyond that, as Busi correctly says, if you look into the age, income, education, in particular, you find that it's your middle class that says they may never vote for the ANC. And we do acknowledge that to a certain extent, there is a shift amongst the middle class, because most of them, they think that they're liberated, they think they have whatever they can have, as compared to those who know that the ANC can deliver them services, the ANC can give them houses, roads, water, etc. So the middle class thinks that they've arrived, they've got everything, but the poor, they still, if you look in terms of stats, believe in the ANC. Those who are in the economy, they still believe in the ANC in terms of your own study.
Samkelo, why do you think that there's such a high tendency towards anti-incumbency? In other words, people opposing the ANC, just from your general perspective?
Well, from my general perspective is I would pin it down to as you said, that the ANC has become cumbersome, the ship has become unwieldy and too big and laden with corruption. Service delivery has slowed down. There are several spheres in which, and quarters in the ANC government that are failing young people and old people by that regard. The DA has tried to cover those gaps and tried to make inroads and deliver them their offer. I would like to rebut my learned colleague's assertion that the ANC is delivering all sorts of services. They may be doing so in incremental levels. However, this assertion that the ANC is delivering housing is complete hogwash. I mean, we've got a backlog of title deeds, RDP houses are collapsing. Mokonyane just last year sent back 2.2 billion rand for water infrastructure. There's no water, there's no quick government response to the drought that's affecting many people, below inflation social grants. So there is a growing sort of despondency within the voting base.
All right, on the panel we also have Zakhele Ndlovu from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He's a political science lecturer. And thanks so much, Zakhele, for your time. We're just asking our respondents, 8,700 of them, which party they are least likely to vote for. And the numbers are quite telling. On average, about 22% of people saying for the ANC, DA and EFF respectively, that these are parties that they would not vote for based on demographics, of course. But what do you make of this shift?
Well, let me just begin by saying that if you look at our younger voters, unlike the older voters, they are not so much loyal to a particular political party. Our older voters tend to vote on the basis of loyalty, and these loyalties can be traced back to the history of this country. But younger voters, I think they are more concerned about what's happening in their daily lives. They are thinking of job opportunities, they are thinking of access to education. So they want to see things happening now. They want to make sure that they've got opportunities. They are not thinking that I have to be loyal to a particular political party. They will only support a party that provides for what they are looking for. So it's going to be very interesting because from now on we're going to see more and more younger people, especially the so-called born frees, voting in the next few elections. So I think it says that there's a possibility that we may begin to see a realignment in the manner in which people vote.
All right, let's just bring it back per province. In the Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, that would be page 3 of your data there. Very interestingly, in Gauteng, 28.4% of people saying that they'll never vote or they're least likely to vote for the ANC. And KwaZulu-Natal, 31.2% saying that they would never vote for the EFF. And again in Limpopo, EFF not very popular there. The DA in the Eastern Cape coming very high at people saying that they would not vote for the DA, 27.9%. So there are preferences based on the geography or demographics as well. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of makeup. So how do you navigate this political landscape to ensure that you garner as many votes as possible in your respective jurisdictions?
Well, what we do is that we continue to deliver the DA's offer in the Western Cape, where we in fact govern. And what we do is that we try and tailor-make the DA's offer within our policy suite to suit the various municipalities that we've identified as strategic and the provinces that we think, and we try and identify those particular needs, because the needs in different communities and different municipalities and provinces vary from place to place. One may have more emphasis on housing, one may have more emphasis on education, and we try and tailor the DA's offer to suit that electorate and to try and garner their support and capture their imagination.
Yeah, and I mean, parties have to work harder now, of course, to find out what the issues are. Do you go back to your voters or would-be voters to find out what their needs are that the party can fulfill?
I think the ANC, particularly in Gauteng, it has excelled into that. To go back to my point that in the main, in your middle-class dominated areas, you'll find this. Because Gauteng, by its nature, you have people who've got mobility. Now, what the ANC, it had a challenge with your e-tolls. The provincial government worked on something together with the deputy president to try and manage the situation because it was getting out of hand. And as things stand, to a certain extent, you no longer hear much noise about the e-tolls as we're going to these polls too. You'll know that you had your issues with your taxi industry. The Ministry of Transport convened all taxi associations to resolve their matters. You'd know about the provincial government program they call Interesano, wherein they go directly to the people and listen to them and resolve their problems on the spot. Now, from last year till today, things have changed in Gauteng, simply because of the responsiveness of the provincial government of Gauteng. I can count a lot of programs that they've done to go back to the people and resolve their problems, and they have done that.
Okay, let's just get Busi from a research point of view in that would this be a perception on voters to say these are the parties that I think are least capable of delivering, or is it a case of being disgruntled or expectations being too high that any political party isn't able to fulfill?
You know, Cindy, I respect research. I'm a researcher and I enjoy it a lot. And I think it's important to do so because it will give us a perspective. However, the real proof in this case is in the pudding. So we wait for the 3rd of August, and I mean, a lot of things have been happening. I think, you know, it's dependent on that immediate moment when someone walks into that box to actually vote what really happens. So it's very difficult to predict. But when it comes to provinces, I think it's very interesting because 8 provinces are under the ANC-led government, and 1, which is the Western Cape, under the DA government. Gauteng, as Temkosi said, the issues of e-toll may have been, you know, something that decreased the number of voters. However, I'm very concerned with him kind of suggesting that the middle class is well off and therefore they will not vote for the ANC, which then for me gives the impression that the ANC is only gunning for what votes of the poor, and I don't think that is very productive for the political party.
We'll get to that topic, and I see Temikosi already disagreeing there with you, but let's cover other matters now. With just over 3 weeks left for the voters to cast their ballots, where do parties stand, and how successful have the political campaigns been in luring voters? It's over to my colleague Abigail for more.
Now let's take a look. The question was asked, who would you vote for if the municipal elections were actually held today? Taking a look at those results, ANC's vote shares is at 51.3%. That's down by 10.2%. Compared to the last time, the Democratic Alliance is at 25%. That's marginally up by 2.1%. While the Economic Freedom Fighters has shown a remarkable improvement in terms of vote share from its performance in the last polls, it stands at 16.1% in terms of vote share. That's up by a full 9.8%. Also, now let's take a look at the demographic breakup there. When it comes to age across all groups, the ANC has its stronghold, the Democratic Alliance and EFF failing to make significant inroads there in any of those categories. And when it comes to divisions on the basis of race, let's take a look. There are no surprises there. 46.2% of black people still go for the ANC, while 15.4% say they will choose the Economic Freedom Fighters. And as has been the trend, the Democratic Alliance rules the roost when it comes to the white population, Asian, Indian and coloured people as well. And the most interesting results is in the Gauteng province. The ANC is losing its foothold there with just 35.7% saying that they will vote for the ANC. The party's vote share is plummeting by a huge 17.9%. The Democratic Alliance is up by 8.3% at 39%. That's ahead of the ANC there. Also, the EFF is also attracting a lot of votes at 20.3%. Moving over to the Limpopo province, ANC is at 57%. That's down by 21.6%. The Democratic Alliance at 12.1%. EFF 28.4%. That's up by 17.6%. Huge increase there. Moving over to the Mpumalanga province, the party votes and the swing votes there, starting off with the ANC at 56.9%. That's down by a massive 21.3% in that province. The Democratic Alliance at 16.5%. That's up by 5.1%. The EFF 19.8%, up by 13.6% there, and the IFP at 0.5%. there. Moving over to the Northwest Province, let's take a look at the party votes and the swing votes. If there are ANC 55.1%, that's down by 12.3% there. The Democratic Alliance at 16.2%, that's up by 3.4%. The EFF at 28.7%, up there by another large 15.5%. Moving over to the Western Cape now, the party votes and the swing votes once again. ANC at 37.6%, that's up by 4.8%. The Democratic Alliance 47.9%, that's down by quite a large 11.5% there. And the Economic Freedom Fighters at 7.9%, that's up by 5.4%.
So we continue with our election poll chat, looking at what is going on the ground. And this time around, we're crunching the numbers to find out voter sentiment. So the question we wanted to know, who would you vote for if the municipal elections were held today? Interestingly, though, that the 10.2% that the ANC lost has not transferred automatically to the DA. Busi, what do you think that we could attribute this to?
Well, there's a new political party on the block, the new kid on the block, the EFF, which actually broke off from the ANC. And I think that kind of splits the vote from the ANC voter. Also, the other votes where the EFF is getting new votes, it's from the new market, which is the younger people, the so-called born frees. I think they resonate a lot with young people, so part of their stronghold is the support from the youth. And yes, it has disturbed or maybe transformed the political landscape, the arrival of EFF. They contested in national elections, and if we were to go by that performance, I mean, they performed so well that they got over 10 seats in parliament. That is very phenomenal for a brand new political party, and perhaps they'll do the same with this upcoming local elections. We wait to see. And overall, with the ANC, with the swing vote sitting on a negative, when you do a comparison from 2011 local government elections, the ANC did the support for the ANC did decline somewhat, especially in the Gauteng province. So Gauteng is very competed over Gauteng province, and I think the ANC will really have to campaign very hard to get the votes back, particularly in the Gauteng region, because as it stands, it seems as if, you know, the Gauteng regions or municipalities are in the market.
Yeah, how's the party now managed the dissent? And we've heard some negative sentiment around just leadership issues with the whole candidacy list, and the numbers speak for themselves that the ANC is slipping at 10.2%. What over and above the normal door-to-door campaigns are you doing to ensure that these votes are not absorbed in other parties?
Now, look, I understand Abu Busi, when they do research, this is evidence-based. As the ANC, our own evidence is warm bodies. There's no longer dissent in Tshwane. You see what happened in one day, 3 areas to aspect. We filled up about in 8 provinces, the stadiums, 80,000, 82,000 in Gauteng, go to Mpumalanga 60,000, you go to Northwest 40,000, you go to KZN, but 40,000 I can count. So I'm saying as the ANC, we believe in warm bodies. We understand, we respect the study of 8,700. But now we I mean, that number, I don't know, we don't even triple it as the ANC in terms of home bodies. During the election day, those are the people who are going to decide. About, in fact, now we've been in contact with more than 3 million people, only on rallies, let alone door-to-doors. And during door-to-doors, all the issues that have been, the negative issues, they're not there, they don't exist. People, they are very happy to see the ANC.
Yeah, it would be disingenuous to say that every single political party doesn't have its challenges. And looking at the challenges, the DA in themselves, with your meteoric growth and rise, there's also another, what could potentially be an official opposition in the wings, in the waiting as the EFF. So how do you sustain your growth? Because as we said, the 10.2 loss for the ANC hasn't automatically, transferred to you.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the DA, number one, first and foremost, it shows that the ANC is in a sharp decline since its 2/3 majority it received in the early years of democratic dispensation. We do see that the EFF is by these polls gaining some momentum. However, we as the DA, we do feel that the EFF will be exposed for what it truly is. I mean, it's very easy to say radical things when you're not in government or governing anywhere, in fact, in this country, to say radical things on land reform and the nationalization of mines and ridding of EPWP. So that in itself captures the imagination of people. But as time goes on, I really do feel that the DA being a party in government and in opposition, that we are growing. We do have a good offer, an offer that will move South Africa forward and increase the economy instead of regressive state capture by the ANC and radical, unimplementable policies by the economic freedom fighters.
Yeah, you're just throwing missiles, from all directions. I don't even know which way to duck, but let's just get a more a sober perspective as to what the numbers show us. I'm Zamkele Ndlovu, and Ndlovu is in KwaZulu-Natal. He's a lecturer for political science. Zamkele, just looking at the ANC's numbers, not automatically going to the DA, we can attribute these to a number of things, but the EFF having increased by 150% since the last election, these are clearly, I think, a big contestation for any party to look for or to look out for.
Yeah, I think if you look at what has happened is that the ANC has lost some support, but as you correctly indicated, that support has not gone to the official opposition, which is the DA. I think some of the people who would have voted ANC have gone to the EFF, but I think others have become just disillusioned and have decided to stay away from participating in the electoral processes. And I think it should be a big concern, because when you have people who say that they don't see any alternative, then it becomes a problem, because we've got so many political parties in the country, but you find that those people who would have voted NC who decide to stay away, when they say that they're staying away because there's no other political party to vote for, I think it becomes a problem. And I think it forces opposition parties to do some serious introspection and figure out what it is they are not doing right to attract the people who would have voted ANC.
Let's just look at the averages for the provinces in terms of the standings. The ANC pretty much dominating the whole lot, except, of course, in the Western Cape, where the DA is at 47.9%. You yourself, the DA, has lost 11.5% in the Western Cape. There's a swing vote there that could go either way. Samkela, are you guys focusing on that?
Whether or not there is a swing vote, I would like to contend that. I would say that your numbers, we have yours, you have yours, we have ours. We are very confident that we will gain complete outright majority in the Western Cape. That, without a shadow of a doubt, we will again win the city of Cape Town under Patricia de Lille's leadership. So that we contend quite strongly. But however, should those numbers be believed, it would be because, yes, there is a new kid on the block. Politics is very dynamic. Things change, things swift. 3 weeks in politics is a very, very long time, and we will retain the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town.
But Busi, let's just look at the voters' psyche. You know, it could be a case of is the expectation is unrealistic, because even in the Western Cape, where the DA is governing, there are those peripheral, far-flung places, the peri-urban, the Guguletus and what have you, that do not have the level of service delivery as you have in affluent areas. So if people were to compare various provinces, the need and level of service delivery varies. So is this a reflection in the data?
Yes, that is absolutely correct, Cindy. Actually, it's always very surprising when the DA, feels like, the Western Cape is outside of South Africa. In actual fact, it's a province in South Africa, and ultimately everything trickles from national government. But however, with that being said, there are different service deliveries for different people in different places. The service delivery in Guguletu, for instance, I bet it differs from the service delivery that is received by people in the affluent suburbs. But in any case, inequality in South Africa is a serious problem. It's everywhere, not just in the Western Cape province. The inequality gap is growing humongously big. the wealthier are getting wealthier, the poorer are getting poorer. Those who really need the access to service delivery are seemingly what's in the raw end of the stick. And it's very problematic, and you know, South Africa has to really work hard in curbing this inequality between the rich and the poor.
Okay, but we don't want to make it into a dialogue necessarily.
Not necessarily
Yes, but I just want us to respond to, especially, what are you doing in dealing with those levels of frustrations, as opposed to just being in denial that there are problems that exist across all the political parties?
We are not in denial as the ANC. That whenever there are problems, like I know that you ran a story yesterday of what fought in Gugulethu. There are other areas within the Western Cape, Northwest, KZN, disgruntled members of the ANC. What the ANC always does, it goes back to its members, explains the process, persuade them, make them to understand. Again, I'm drawing the same similarity that I've mentioned before, to say, let's take an example. We're dealing with samples here. Let's make an example. In Tshwane, it was a no-go area 2 weeks back. Look at what happened 2 days ago. People are receptive of the mayoral candidate because of the ability of the ANC to go back to its own members and people in general and explain its own decisions. And the ANC, that's what has made it to survive until today. We're not in denial. We have our own challenges like any other political party. But what is important is how you manage those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the social groups now in terms of the demographics and different racial groups. With the DA, no surprises that the Western Cape that you are leading there, I think it's at 47%. And if you break down those numbers, it would show you that it's largely white people, affluent, middle class that would vote for the DA. And the EFF is also making inroads in terms of the black vote. No more is the colored vote, so-called colored vote, still a very strong aspect of your voter base.
Well, we don't look at race, race as voting blocks. I mean, the DA is quite a diverse party. We attract various diverse people. Yes, I mean, we see that the numbers indicate that, but however, our numbers amongst the black South Africans are increasing.
We'll talk about that campaign, but I mean, that's how the ID got into the DA, by the way, with Patricia de Lille herself being so-called colored. So let's not deny what the history already has taught us. The DA, in terms of blackening their campaign, are doing very well.
It's not done yet. On that point, though, I'd like to also say what that feeds into is that because we have white voters, there's some sort of negligence with regards to the black offering services to the black South African community. I mean, the numbers show within our annual reports is that the Western Cape, 72% of its budget goes to giving service delivery in the poorer communities.
But I think there's still distrust, though, Busi. We've saw with the Stats SA also coming up with that whole polarization of our society and that people still vote along black and white lines.
Yes, I think there's a trust deficit between civil society and government. And in other words, people don't just only see government as government delivering for everybody, but there's also just affiliation in terms of political party. And voter behavior can be best understood in the sense that it's multiple. First, you can vote according to divisions culturally. You know, there's a Zulu president, and therefore maybe the ANC performed very well overall in South Africa in the KZN in 2011 compared to other provinces where there was a significant decline, but the KZN was rather very strong. There's those lines. Secondly, there's you know, racial lines where you associate yourself according to race, and you can vote according to which political party best represents your vote in terms of the race, and also sentiments. There's you know, voting according to sentiments where you feel a sense of loyalty to a certain political party because of what they did in the past. South Africa comes from a very painful past, apartheid, and the transitioning into democracy perhaps is attributed to the now governing party, which is African National Congress. And you have other political parties that constantly try to prove that, you know, it's beyond race and we have a black leader here and all the executive is held by a different race. We cannot ignore race.
We'll take a quick ad break, and on the other side, we'll analyze the data further as to what impact they will have on the national elections.